Hello, Philosophy and English friends. The winter semester at the Pontifical University in Krakow is slowly coming to an end, and now, having finished the course of Philosophy and Chance with Father Wojciech Grygiel, and having presented you with 3 episodes of Coffee Chats with Father on the topic, we decided to come in, having finished our book, having listened to many lectures with Father, and discuss the idea of chance. This is especially important, Father, because there's a local lotto happening, and I was kind of thinking, should I spend a few zloty and take a chance? What do you think? An investment or is it a waste?
Well, to a degree it is an investment because what makes it probable that you're going to win something is that there is a certain stability in how these numbers come out. It's not completely random. I mean, you have certain grounds to expect that certain numbers will come out with a non-zero frequency. So I think everyone who buys a lottery implicitly assumes that there is some kind of a stability in how these numbers come out. They're not completely chaotic.
That's actually one of the points that I really enjoyed about your course, Father, is that finding that there is some kind of rationality to chance.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, of course, many, many years ago, I kind of thought that chance was just that thing. You were either going to be struck by lightning or not. Now, of course, we understand there's a whole science behind getting struck by lightning, and at the same time, there is also a very complex science behind chance.
Yes.
And that's what we found out during your course, or at least I tried to find out, and we're going to discuss today. We have 5 points that we're going to be looking at. Actually, I've written down a few ideas. We're going to start with the Aristotelian idea of chance, because this is not a new idea. This goes all the way back to ancient Greece, right?
Yeah, it's an old idea. Chance, people always struggled in how to understand chance, and the intellectual effort to grasp the meaning of chance, as you have rightly pointed out, reaches back to Aristotle.
This really fascinated me because I think often in the modern world we too often come to the idea that, oh, I'm thinking of this for the first time, and everything comes from somewhere, and especially with chance, it's hardly a modern concept. So we're going to start with Aristotle and see what the Greeks came up with, and then from that we're going to build on and look at the limiting theorem offered by Bernoulli. And this is where we kind of come into an idea of maths. Maths as they relate to chance, or chance as can be counted with maths. And then from there we'll look at Kolmogorov's definition. Am I saying that right?
Kolmogorov.
Kolmogorov. Well, okay, come to Eastern Europe, guys. You're never going to be able to read the same again. Afterwards, we'll look at subjective and objective sources of probability. As a philosopher, I love to talk about the subjectivity and objectivity of anything. I love to discuss these ideas and to apply them to pretty much any topic. So if you're into this kind of reasoning, then make sure you stay around. From there, we'll go on to a big topic, especially a big topic in the Pontifical University, which is the concept of intelligent design.
Yes, intelligent design and the discussion with the evolutionists, whether God can create through chance.
I have a feeling we're going to be hearing about this in the comments.
Oh, we might.
Okay.
Well, we're ready for it.
We are absolutely ready for it. If you guys do have comments at the end, make sure you leave them, and maybe we'll make a future video to discuss it. But our final topic will be chance and the structure of the universe, the strategy of chance and the strategy of necessity as mechanisms responsible for the growth of complexity in the universe. And yes, this class was also complex as well.
It sounds complex, doesn't it?
Everything is just a little bit complicated. But Father, before we get going into this, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about our course textbook, Philosophy of Chance by Father Michał Heller. Father Heller, as we talked about in our previous videos, is a scientist. He won the Templeton Prize, and he's very esteemed in the world of philosophy, science, and philosophy and nature, yes?
Yes, and theology.
And theology. So could you tell us a little bit about the inspiration that went into writing this book? Because as I understand, you know Father Heller.
Yeah, I've known him for many years, and the main thought behind the book is, even it shows up on the Polish edition, doesn't show up on the English one, it is about taming chance. Because as you have rightly mentioned, it was Aristotle who struggled with the notion of chance, but he wasn't able to grasp it. And Aristotle was thinking that
Actually, as far as I understand from your course, Aristotle believed there was nothing relating chance to science
Yes.
because there's nothing causal about chance.
Yes, because Aristotle would say that what falls under the scrutiny of science is something that happens always or for the most part.
It has to have a pattern,
Yes.
and that pattern has to have a
Predictable.
beginning.
Yeah. So there has to be a predictable pattern, and Aristotle will explicitly say that science studies some things which happen for the most part or happen all the time, always. Right?
So is Father Heller intrigued by this concept?
Yeah, I mean, what he's trying to do, and the whole train of thought is to show that with the progress of science, we are able to tame the chance, which means to bring it back or kind of regain it for science. So his main outcome will be to say that science controls chance, and from the point of view of science, chance is rational and chance is intelligible.
Which I think would be a good point. We talked a bit about Aristotle, and this kind of bridges the gap, our little travel to the next topic, of Bernoulli's limiting theorem. So if we look at Aristotle, just to kind of go back there and remember it, revise it, recheck it out, there's no connection between science and chance. They are
Yes.
two separate entities, and then we go into Bernoulli. Who was Bernoulli? Can you kind of give us a scope on him, Father? He was a scientist as well.
Yeah, he was a scientist, he was a philosopher, and he came up with this theorem which engages several mathematical concepts, especially the concept of the expected value and the average value.
Now, how I looked at this, I like the expected value because I'm a person that wants to know what's going to happen. I hate when the buses are late
Okay.
because I expect that it's going to be there at the timetable's indication. But with Bernoulli, what I've written, because it really hit me in the book, is like regularity emerges.
Yes, yes.
With Bernoulli, we can find certain regularities to particular events. For example, we can predict if that we know bus 162 is always going to come to Kraków-Błonia at 3 p.m.
Yes.
And we observe it every day happening. After a few instances of this, then we can make, with a fairly certain idea, that regularity emerges from the timetable. That bus will always be there at 3 p.m.
Yes, but I think the idea about Bernoulli's theorem is slightly different because
Bernoulli put
it's a special it's a mathematical expression, and you have to be precise in what terms you use. So the Bernoulli theorem says that if you, for instance, throw a dice.
Yeah, he put this with the game of dice.
If you throw a dice, then when you do it in many times, then as you go along, you can be computing the average of your results.
And at the bottom of our little computation here, we have 6, because there's 6 chances anytime you throw a dice.
You have 6 outputs: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You can have 6 events.
Exactly. And so with this, every time you throw it, it's adding to your top number.
Yes, but I mean, what the theorem states is, once if you're accumulating a large number of events and you keep computing your average of all the results you've obtained, this average always approaches the so-called expected value. That's a precisely mathematically defined quantity.
So with expected value, can we go into this a little bit more? This is not my idea that I'm going to hopefully get till 3, but it's the idea that I will expect it sometime I'm going to get 3 enough times.
Well, I would say it's kind of the most likely output you'd get from your experiment.
As many times as you throw. And so with this, with an experiment, of course, we have to say, I'm going to take this dice and I'm going to throw it X amount of times.
Yes.
And of those X amount of times, I have 6 possibilities that will show up.
Yes.
And then after we do it, if we look at the maths, which you're a bit more of a professional in than I am, we're going to find regularity emerges.
Yes, because we'll find out that our expected value when we throw a dice is 3.5. That's the number you get.
Our magic number.
Yeah, our magic number, 3.5. And you will be approaching that number when you compute the average of your outcomes as you go along. So once you accumulate a large number of these outcomes, it's going to be approaching the expected value, which is 3.5.
Now, philosophy, if you're familiar with me and my approach to philosophy, is that philosophy is something that we see and use in our daily life. And with Bernoulli's theorem, where does this apply? Casinos.
Well, it's the same thing, casinos, because if there were no regularity in chance,
it would be a big
Casino,
danger for them.
yeah, casinos would make no money. And there would be no Las Vegas, there would be no Reno, there would be no Atlantic City. So
but if they understand that they've got 3.5, 3.6% chance of coming in, they can safely go ahead and allow people to play the slots because they know X amount of time they will win, so they're not going to lose all the money that's going onto the table here.
Well, it's the big computation, but it relies on the regularity, because if there were no regularity, they would make no money whatsoever.